Good morning. I take off my mask to reveal my true identity. It's such a strange world we're in these days, but we're getting used to it. Good morning to everybody. We used to say good morning, and you would say good morning back to me. Let's not forget that ritual that we once had. So, this past week, I got a chance to drive up to Detroit, Oregon, not so far from here. And except for a few smoldering embers, the fires are gone. And now snow blankets the ground up there, and natural and human forces are at work, restoring these devastated areas. We now have new vaccines coming, created in faster time than was even thought possible just a few months ago. It's going to take time to distribute the vaccine, but it will get distributed. Tomorrow, on December the 14th, electors will vote on the next president, and thus I'm pretty sure our democracy is going to survive a destructive challenge. More good news. So let's welcome the good news, because we've had to face a lot of bad news in this past year. And let's create good news ourselves. We create good news by welcoming one another with open arms and minds and hearts. Of course, you're sitting at home in your pajamas, maybe with no one else around. So how can we welcome people? There's always a way. There's always a way to welcome the moments of life as they arise. Welcome whoever you can. Welcome to this day. Welcome one and all.
Our opening hymn today is Seek Not Afar for Beauty. It's number 77 in the Gray Hymnal. Seek not afar for beauty, lo, it glows in dew-wet grasses all about your feet, in birds in sunshine, childish faces sweet, in stars and mountains, summits topped with snows. Go not abroad for happiness, behold, it is a flower blooming at your door. Bring love and laughter home and evermore. Joy shall be yours as changing years unfold. In wonder workings or some bush of flame, we look for truth and fancy it conceal. But in earth's common things it stands revealed, while grass and flowers and stars spell out the name.
Oh, sing a new song to the eternal. Shout praise, all earth. Break into music and song. Praise the Eternal with the lyre and song. Let the sea and all within it thunder praise, the world and all its inhabitants. Let rivers clap their hands, let mountains sing in chorus. Oh, sing a new song to the Eternal. Let us join in together and say our affirmation. Love is our doctrine, compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration, build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world. Community is the spirit, the guiding light of the tribe, whereby people come together in order to fulfill a specific purpose, to help others fulfill their purpose, and to take care of one another. Each week, we light 3 chalices. The first is for this congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem. We light our second chalice for our partner church in Siemanfalva, Transylvania, Romania. And we light our third chalice for our children and youth in lifespan religious education and in our world at large. Let us sing the flame into life.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Good morning and welcome to the Time for All Ages portion of the service. The story I'm going to tell you today is an Advent story, or a story that we tell as we make way and prepare for the rebirth of the sun at winter solstice, or Christmas time. The story is called The Light of Men by Jacob Street. I have reversed the gender pronouns in this story. For many months, Mother Sun had shone down on the earth with all of her might. She had warmed the snow until it melted and the streams ran once again, singing their merry songs. She had warmed the earth until the seeds had sprouted and grew, and the trees sent out their tender green leaves and dainty blossoms. She had warmed the air until the fruits swelled and ripened. All through the summer, she had beamed down upon the fields of golden corn and orange pumpkins. In the autumn, the trees reflected her warm gaze in their gold and scarlet leaves. Now she was tired and needed to rest. Father Moon saw how tired Mother Sun was and how old she was beginning to look. In spring, she had been young and fresh, looking down on the earth with her strong, bright gaze. She had needed so little sleep. All through the summer, she had stayed up late into the evening so that she could look over the richness of the earth just a little bit longer. Now she was tired and always needed to sleep. Her glance was duller and her light dimmer. By late afternoon, she was ready to sleep. Father Moon grew worried and said to Mother Sun, "You need to rest, or you will never regain your strength by springtime. Let me shine on the earth and warm it with my light." Mother Sun agreed with a wary nod and thanked him. Every night, Father Moon shone down on the earth with all of his might. In the dark sky, he blazed like silver, lighting the way of tired travelers. But Father Moon was not as strong as Mother Sun, and try as he might, he could not make up for her fading light. In the course of a month, he too needed more and more rest, and finally there was but a sliver of him to be seen, and the nights grew darker. Father Moon called his sons and daughters to him and said, "Your mother is very weary from her labors last year. I have tried to light the earth, but my strength is not equal to the task. I need your help that mankind may not have to live in cold and darkness. So the stars and planets shone as brightly as they could, sparkling like jewels in the dark sky. Each night they swept across the sky, and even in the dim morning light, the brightest of them could be seen. But try as they might, the stars and planets were not able to light the earth. All they could do was guide weary wanderers on their way. The nights grew longer and darker. As the nights passed, however, the stars began to notice something. They awakened their father and said, "Look, down on the earth. Each night it has become a little bit brighter." Father Moon saw that the earth was shining with a dim light. What could it be? He wondered. Is it the lamps in the windows or the fires in the hearth? It was the dead of winter. On the longest and darkest night of the year, Mother Sun and Father Moon slept soundly, and the stars swept in their courses. But the earth was not dark. With each passing hour, it grew ever more light. The stars awakened their father. "Look," they said, "the earth is gleaming." Father Moon looked and saw that the earth shone brightly with radiant light. "What can it be?" they asked. "I do not know," he answered. "Let's ask Mother Sun." It was midnight, and Mother Sun was awakened from her long sleep. She looked down upon the earth, and indeed, it was shining as bright as day. "From where does this light come?" asked her children. "It's brighter than lamplight and warmer than firelight." Mother Sun cast her glance far down to the earth. "That light is the light of men and women, of humanity," she said. "In the darkest night, a new sun is born in the human heart. Thanks be, and may all beings be happy." Please do consider joining us for the Children's Religious Exploration Program, meeting on Sunday mornings just before the live service at 9:45 a.m. via Zoom. Next week, our learning topic will be the rekindling of light at the winter solstice.
Thank you, Lily, for that story. Thank you, Kit and Laura, for the beautiful music. Let's take a moment to pause in our lives just to reflect deeply. Take a breath and be in this present moment. Take this moment to reflect deeply on your life, on your relationships with other people. As I did so recently, I realized that I have not felt or expressed compassion too many times, not because I lacked compassion. I lacked something else. Something that would have made compassion likely. I lacked understanding. I have often not understood what another person is going through. For if I had known, I would have had compassion for them. And so I strive to remember that there is much that I do not understand concerning the challenges that other people face. And being mindful of this, I will strive to withhold judgment and hold compassion for everyone. This week we are especially mindful of Barbara Smith. Barbara Smith served on our Board of Trustees. She and her husband, Quentin, also a vital member of our congregation, moved to the Midwest. And this week, Barbara died unexpectedly. And so we send our compassionate thoughts out to Quentin and the Smith family. Think now of all the people in your life and the world for whom you would like to send compassionate thoughts and prayers. Think of this wide world. And think of that one place where you are particularly called to show your compassion. Compassion is our way. And gratitude. Today you'll hear my story of gratitude. And I invite you now to think of the artists, the poets, the musicians, the composers, whose passion to create has created opportunities for us to experience life more fully and vividly and honestly, courageously, and lovingly. Think of those who have written the songs or the poems or created the paintings or the art that has touched you, that has transformed you. We think with gratitude this morning of all who sacrificed themselves to create beautiful music, beautiful sights, beautiful words, that we might have abundant life. For all this we give thanks. I invite you now to think of those whose words, whose music, whose paintings have touched you, have uplifted you, and transformed you. And we celebrate this with gratitude in our hearts. And we celebrate the creation of new relationships in this community. And Megan and Chris Roller remind us that it was a year ago tomorrow that I stood in front of this sanctuary and joined them in marriage. And on Christmas, it will be the 11th anniversary of their first date. We're grateful for all the love that is born in this place. We're grateful because gratitude is our way. Gratitude for all the blessings and compassion for all the beings. Amen.
If you have joys or concerns that you wish to share, go to the UUCS webpage and click on the button that says Joys and Concerns for them to be read in our services on Sunday.
Our pastoral hymn today is Color and Fragrance. It's number 78 in the Gray Hymnal. We're going to sing verses 1, 2, and 6.
Color and fragrance, magical rhythm, sweet changing music will change us with them, life within life. shaper of all things. To us you've given our chance to keep here on earth a heaven moving in harmony, light gently glowing. May we be gratefully God's vision growing.
We who stand here at the grave of the deceased are, in a sense, the representatives of an entire nation. The whole German people come to mourn. The last master of resounding song, the gracious mouth by which music spoke, the man who inherited and increased the immortal flame of Handel and Bach, of Haydn and Mozart, has ceased to be. And we stand weeping over the broken strings of an instrument now stilled. An instrument now stilled. Let me call him that, for he was an artist, and what he was only through art. The thorns of life had wounded him deeply, and as the shipwrecked man clutches the saving shore, he flew to your arms. O wondrous sister of the good and true, comforter in affliction, the art that comes from on high. He held fast to you, and even when the gate through which you had entered was shut, you spoke through a deafened ear to him who could no longer discern you. And he carried your image in his heart, and when he died, it still lay on his breast. He was an artist, and who shall stand behind him? As the behemoth sweeps through the seas, he swept across the boundaries of his art. From the cooing of the dove to the thunder's roll, from the subtlest interweaving of willful artifices to that awesome point at which the fabric presses over into the lawlessness of clashing natural forces. He traversed all. He comprehended everything. He who follows him cannot continue. He must begin anew, for his predecessor ended where art ends. Muses of song and strings gather at his grave and strew it with laurel. He was an artist, but also a man in every sense, in the highest sense. Because he shut himself off from the world, they called him hostile, and callous because he shunned feelings. Oh, he who knows he is hardened and does not flee. It is the more delicate point that is most easily blunted, that bends or breaks. Excess of feelings avoids feelings. He fled the world because he did not find, in the whole compass of his loving nature, a weapon with which to resist it. He withdrew from his fellow man, and he had given them everything and had received nothing in return. He remained alone because he found no second self. But until his death, he preserved the human heart for all people, a parent's heart for his own people, the whole world. Thus he was, thus he died, thus he will live for all time.
In the year 1970, gosh, half a century ago. Beethoven, representing art, and the Buddha, representing spirituality, I don't know how it happened, but they parachuted into the wasteland of my life and provided me with the necessary information, inspiration, to find my way out of the bleak and gloomy realm in which I found myself temporarily stranded. The story of the Buddha is for another time, but today, as we near the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's birth, which will be on Wednesday, December the 16th, I think it's a good time for me to share my story of his impact upon my life. In my 20th year, 1970, I was in the roughest patch of my life. Everything seemed to be falling apart. And I wasn't at all sure what lay ahead. So it still seems to me quite odd that I would have wandered into a Kmart store. Remember Kmart? I guess they're bankrupt now. But the Kmart in Atlanta, and I chose to purchase an LP album of Beethoven's Fifth Piano Concerto, played by Wilhelm Kempff on the piano and the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. I don't know why I bought this record. I can't remember why. I mean, I thought I was a countercultural hippie. My hair was down to there. I had no background in classical music. I wasn't an artsy kind of person in general. I didn't think so. And all my friends were finding deep meaning in listening to the great rock music of the era. There was a lot of great music coming out around that time. And yet, I was looking for something else, and I didn't even know it. Little did I realize when I bought that LP that it would be the key to a whole new world that would change my life. And so I listened to this music, and nothing. This is often the case with great music. If you listen to it the first time, nothing happens. But later, I listened again. And the doors to the temple opened, and I entered this magnificent cathedral of sound, and I was enchanted, enthralled, and uplifted, ennobled, and transformed. Yes, transformed by these glorious sounds made by the solo piano and the full orchestra. I understood this language. I got it. And it gave me a message that I so desperately needed to hear at this particular point in my life. And that is that there is more joy and beauty. There's a sublime grandeur and a deep meaning to life. It was an actual conversion experience. And I realized this was not just music, it was a healing, hopeful ray of light shining on my bruised and battered soul. And I was amazed that I had discovered the greatest work of art ever created on my first try. I thought I could not imagine anything more glorious than Beethoven's Fifth Piano Concerto, the Emperor Concerto it's called. It truly is one of the greatest ever written. But then, months later, I began listening to Beethoven's Fourth Piano Concerto. That was a sight to behold. My friends were amused to watch me listen to classical music because I didn't hold back. I was a writhing, ecstatic, moaning, air-conducting sight to behold. I would have been kicked out of any concert hall. But I felt no sense in constraining myself. This was music that I love so dearly. That summer, I think I must have listened to the Fourth Piano Concerto about 100 times. I'll never get tired of that piece. And it was like a healing balm for me. And I just knew, this is the best. This is the ultimate. Art can't possibly get any better than this. Actually, it was just the beginning of my pilgrimage. In 1971, the plot thickened when I purchased some LPs with the pianist Charles Rosen playing the master's late piano sonatas. 29, 30, 31, and 32, the late ones. And here we tread on sacred ground, which I will speak of momentarily. But for now, I need to mention the 29th sonata, known as the Hammerklavier Sonata. Beethoven wrote this sonata at the end after the most painful and heartbreaking period of his life, during which time, around 1812, 1819, he composed little music. He was increasingly deaf. He realized he would never find a loving partner in this world. His beloved nephew, Karl, had tried to commit suicide. Beethoven was all alone in a deep well of sorrow. And this sonata, the Hammerklavier, is a chronicle of his journey through this dark night of the soul. Years later, I was reading the critic George Steiner, who said that great art comes to you as an annunciation. It invades the small house of your cautionary being and commands you to change your life. I know exactly what he's talking about. That's exactly how this sonata felt to me. I can still remember when I listened to the third movement of this sonata, which has been called the apotheosis of utter woe, sacred woe, the apotheosis of utter woe. And when I listened to this sonata, how my emotional world, my spiritual vistas expanded so vastly. And I could see there was such profound depth and honesty in this solemn music that looked so squarely at human suffering and somehow gave voice to this in an achingly beautiful testament to the sorrow in life. And in my own life, I had known sorrow. And this music helped me to be with it. That's why we have the blues. Call this the classical blues. And this reminds us that the way through sorrow and grief is through it. And music can help you be with it. If you're going through a hard time right now and you're inclined to listen to Beethoven, listen to that third movement, that of the 29th Piano Sonata, and it'll help you be with your sorrow and your grief. It seems to me that this music emboldened me not to follow any familiar script in life. I would find my own path in life, a path with a heart. And so I emerged from that hard year 50 years ago, the year 1970, with more strength and sense of purpose. And I hope that's how we're going to exit the year 2020, by the way, with more strength and sense of purpose. But in 1970, after I had encountered it, really did change my life. I felt like I was setting out on a grand adventure of life, even though I was often scared as hell. I really was. But Beethoven's gentle, healing, ecstatic violin concerto provided more great inspiration for me as I ventured forward. I love that violin. But Beethoven only wrote one violin concerto. I used to play it a lot. Play the LP, the CD, a lot. When Zachary was just a little baby, I played that thing over and over again. I never realized that one day I would be listening to my son's own violin concerto in Carnegie Hall. So play Beethoven for your children. That's the point. That's what I'm trying to say. One thing about me, which is probably why I ended up being a minister, is that I feel compelled to share good news, good stuff with other people. I just can't keep it to myself. And so given this character trait, it's probably inevitable that I would become a somewhat overbearing Beethoven evangelist. Unbeknownst to me at the time, my experience in this evangelical role would prove to be excellent preparation for the Unitarian Universalist ministry, because we learn a lot from our failures and mistakes. Here's what I learned. I had naively imagined that anyone and everyone who listened to Beethoven like I did would have the exact same strong, ecstatic reaction that I did. And many people have had those kind of reactions. Indeed, I'm happy to note that Beethoven is the most popular and revered composer in China today. But the folks I evangelized were generally not nearly as enthusiastic about the music. My good friend Pete tells me that his earliest memory of me was being forced to sit down in my room and listen to Beethoven. Yeah, that was probably me. What I failed to recognize is that people are different. We experience the world differently, and you can't force someone to appreciate something when you want them to. Pete is my dear good friend, but Beethoven and classical music in general is not his thing, and that's fine. He likes Doc Watson, the folk singer. I do too. What I learned is that forced conversions don't work. I must add here, however, that many people miss appreciating great music that really could have lifted them up. They make a mistake. They make a big mistake. They say, I listened to that one time, been there, done that attitude. No, you don't do that. You wouldn't go to a country and land in the airport and then take off and said you visited that country, would you? So if you're going to listen to a great piece of music, really, really pay it a good visit and be there, and be there. More importantly, when you're listening, not just your head, it's your heart. It's the feeling. It's the feeling. And now, this Beethoven evangelist knows to share his enthusiasm, and people are free to take it as they will. As for me, I would need to take all the Beethoven I could. During one long and lonely stretch of life, I had the great good fortune to meet the Razumovskys. You should meet the Razumovskys. I'm speaking of the three Razumovsky string quartets, numbers 7, 8, and 9, opus 59. This was commissioned by the Russian ambassador to Vienna, Count Razumovsky, hence the name of the string quartets. This is my first venture into chamber music. Wow, such great, creative masterpieces, the Razumovsky string quartets. How was it possible, I would marvel, for a human being to do this, to weave together sounds on 4 instruments that could take me on such a wide-ranging journey that would strum emotional chords within me that I didn't even know I had. These marvelous quartets companioned me through some hard times. This music would not allow me to lose heart or my zest for life, even during times of painful loneliness. The Razumovsky was often my refuge, and it restored my soul. How I wish there was time to tell you about the great Diabelli Variations, which has been compared to a complete spiritual pilgrimage that unfolds in 33 astonishing variations. Beethoven composed that late in his life. Or I wish I could tell you about his 32nd and last piano sonata, arguably the greatest one ever written. And I haven't even had a chance to tell you about the master's 9 symphonies and all sorts of other masterpieces. There's just so much great stuff to listen to. It's unbelievable. Well, back to my story. My life flowed on, and I was at an impasse. What path would I take? Armed with my English major degree, which I finally earned just before I was 30, I was floundering, and no good options seemed to be opening up for me. At the time, I was doing some interior house painting, and the owners of the house somehow learned that I loved Beethoven. I probably told them. Everybody learns sooner or later. There was going to be a performance of Beethoven's great Missa Solemnis. This is a mass for full chorus and orchestra that Beethoven spent 5 years working on near the end of his life. It was a piece I knew very well, and I had wept tears of gratitude over it when I heard it live in the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. The oceanic depths and the heavenly heights of this mass beggars description, the Missa Solemnis. But I did tell my employer friends that they should prepare themselves before going to this concert. They were planning on going to the concert, and I told them they needed to prepare themselves. And so they said, okay, help us. I was invited to give a lecture about this piece of music and play some of the music for some of my friends. This was the first time this Beethoven evangelist had actually been invited to preach his gospel. So I put a lot of work into this lecture because I cared so much about this music. It was glorious, but I wanted other people to come to love it as much as I did, because then their lives would be as enriched as mine was by this music. I just wanted to share it. I just wanted other people to be able to appreciate it like I did. And so I gave this lecture, and at the end of my lecture, I used the same words that Beethoven put on the autograph score of the Missa Solemnis. He worked on this piece 5 years, this glorious Mass, and on the score he wrote these words: "Coming from the heart, may it go to the heart." And I liked that phrase, coming from the heart, may it go. Why? That's how I felt about my talks, so I told my listeners, this is really coming from my heart, and I hope it goes to your heart. This experience of sharing what's deeply meaningful to me with others led me to realize that I was being called to a liberal ministry, to share the good news about the great, sacred beauty and wonder of our lives. And I realized my little lecture was actually kind of like a sermon. Suffice it to say that I was not your typical student at the liberal Christian theology school I attended. I was usually the sole Unitarian Universalist there, and the only one that I knew of who had strong Buddhist leanings. No matter, Emory University served me well, and I had some world-class teachers like Dr. Fred Craddock, my homiletics professor, my preaching professor. He's probably one of the wisest and most accomplished persons in his field in the 20th century. He just died a couple of years ago. Dr. Craddock was a person of great faith. I admired him tremendously. And I am a person of faith too, but my faith looked differently than what Dr. Craddock was used to seeing. Dr. Craddock set up one-on-one interviews with all his preaching students, and I remember excitedly telling him that I had been invited to preach at the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Atlanta, and I was going to preach about, what do you think I was going to preach about? I was going to preach about Beethoven, of course, Beethoven. Well, Craddock didn't exactly know what to say when I said that, and so he said nothing. And there was a noticeable chill in the room. For him, the pulpit was reserved for preaching the good news of Jesus Christ, and I respect that. Yet I had been accepted to study at this school as a Unitarian Universalist, and he was in no position to tell me what to preach about. It was a little bit awkward, but we got through it. He was a great professor. And so, predictably enough, I did preach about Beethoven to the Unitarian Universalists in Atlanta, and I made the rookie error of trying to say everything I knew in one sermon, and I had absolutely no sense of confidence in my delivery, and it showed. In fact, the sermon was so bad, the delivery, the content was probably not so bad, just a lot, maybe like today. But in fact, the sermon was so bad, I realized I was going to have to relocate to the West Coast because my reputation was ruined on the East Coast. So that's why I came out here. Now, to convert people to listening to Beethoven, although I'm very happy for that to happen. And I'm glad to always serve as your free Beethoven consultant. At any time you need a particular piece of music, just come to me and I'll tell you what to listen to, because I know my Beethoven. The message, though, that I want to convey to you when I speak about Beethoven is that spiritual growth is a real thing. Beethoven proved it more than any artist ever has, as far as I can tell. You see, there are really three Beethovens. There are three Beethovens, not one. There's early Beethoven, and there's middle Beethoven, and there's late Beethoven. Early Beethoven compositions proved him to be the worthy heir of Mozart and Haydn. But then he realized he was going deaf. He went into despair. He almost committed suicide. He wrote about it. There's a famous letter, the Heiligenstadt Testament, about Beethoven's suicide note, near suicide note. But then Beethoven looked deep inside himself. He realized he could continue to compose even if he was deaf. He discovered heroic reservoirs of inner strength. And so these middle Beethoven compositions were revolutionary and expanded our understanding of how powerful and bold and uplifting, ecstatic music could be. But then after the middle period, as Beethoven's life wore on, he had to face the prospect of his loneliness, as I noted earlier. And it was painful. But he came to a level of acceptance of this when he realized that his life was to be utterly devoted to his art. And he looked ever deeper into his soul and discovered a spiritual awareness that infuses his late compositions. Beethoven's late string quartets, his piano sonatas, the Diabelli variations, the Missa Solemnis, the Ninth Symphony, these are all from Beethoven's late period and are recognized as the pinnacle of human artistic achievement. And I know all these sublime compositions so well in my heart and soul. I've listened to them so many times. There's a philosopher, mathematician named J.W.N. Sullivan. He wrote a book in 1927. It's one of my favorite books. It's my Beethoven Bible. It's called Beethoven and His Spiritual Development. And Sullivan noted that the string quartets, the late string quartets of Beethoven, reflect a higher state of consciousness than is reflected anywhere in art. I don't take issue with that at all. This music is my sacred text. And I can't even imagine. Sometimes I actually try to imagine, what would my life be like if I hadn't gotten to hear this? I can't even imagine it because it's so enriched my life. These compositions reveal more to me than I can possibly say. They are like windows to a loftier realm of being. And they remind me that beyond the pain and sorrow in this life, there is love and there is joy beyond our imagining. Life is more wondrous than you have yet imagined, and you are greater than you have yet realized. That's the message I always get from Beethoven's music. Life is more wondrous than you have yet imagined, and you are much greater than you have yet realized. Beethoven was also my entree to the vast treasure chest of classical music. And of course, I don't have time to give a lecture about all classical music. I didn't get to tell you about Bach or Bartók or Mozart or Schumann or Sibelius or Prokofiev or Schubert or Shostakovich. I've just listened to so much great music, and I owe so much to these great artists too. But Beethoven is the great prophet for me. I did a little calculation the other day on my smartphone. I took 50, multiplied it by 365, came up with over 18,000. And that's how many days I've lived since I first discovered Beethoven. And on every single day, I dare say without fail, I have thought with gratitude of Beethoven and the soul-awakening beauty of the music he bequeathed to me, to all of us. It means that much to me. How often has this music rescued my soul from despair? And how often I wish I could do the same for others. And so I preach about this great soul, this man who knew the bitterest life has to offer. And yet he prevailed and soared to sublime heights. And finally, I'm left wondering, how did I know? How did I know to look for something that I didn't even know I needed? Something that would bless me so much. It's a mystery, isn't it? I'd say it's a sacred mystery. My hope and prayer for all who listen is that you will somehow know to look for that thing that you don't even know that you need that will bless you every day of your life. Coming from the heart, may it go to the heart. Will you join me and Dr. Kit in a meditation? Let the beauty of music, let the beauty of words, let the beauty of sight, crafted by the great artists, let it enter into you. Let it touch your heart. Let it make you cry. Let it make you laugh. Let it give you hope. Let it give you joy. Every day, remember to open your heart to the great beauty of this world. Be touched. Be transformed. Be uplifted. And as you gaze at the moon, remember these sounds. Remember the music of life, the music of life that all people hear. The music of life that unifies us all. Amen.
We support UUCS through our pledges, time, and connections with one another. We support the Salem community through donations to the Marion and Polk Food Share. And for the month of December, Interfaith Movement for Immigrant Justice, or IMIRJ. IMIRJ is a vibrant and growing community of diverse faith communities, faith leaders, and individuals, led by love and committed to advancing immigrant justice. Founded in 2006, IMIRJ is in relationship with leaders from over 140 congregations throughout the state of Oregon. IMIRJ relies on contributions from individuals and congregations to be able to continue our work for justice and fairness for our immigrant brothers and sisters. We hope that you will join others by contributing financially. Please send your checks to UUCS or visit the website to donate. Thank you for maintaining the community of UUCS and for helping the wider community of Salem. we take light from our chalice, lighting the social justice lantern as a symbolic reminder of the light and justice we carry out into the world. As we extinguish the chalices, let us hear these words by Matt Meyer. May we go forward in purposeful rhythm, that we may give voice to the melody of our imaginations, the music of our souls, and all the possibilities of a just world as we might together create it. Go in peace.
Do you see that slide telling you after the service, Zoom fellowship gatherings, 12 p.m.? I hope you will join us. That's about a little less than a half an hour from now. So please do join us so you do have an opportunity to greet one another after the service today. I hope you'll do that. I'll also hope you'll pay attention to some of the announcements that we have, like the prayer flags for our hopes and dreams. I'm going to start making my prayer flag this afternoon. I'll show it to you next Sunday. But we're hoping that all the members of our congregation will create a prayer flag. We're going to mail you the instructions if you like, or you can come in and make one. We'll be sending out a postcard pretty soon about that, and you can find out how you can sign up and make one. So we want to have a lot of beautiful prayer flags hanging in the sanctuary so that we can visibly remind one another of our community and what our hopes and dreams are. Hope you're going to be prepared if you'd like to join us tomorrow, Tuesday evening. There's a Zoom meeting. I preached a sermon last Sunday, which probably left a lot of hanging questions, and we'd love an opportunity to the Committee on the Ministry and I would love an opportunity to be in dialogue with people and just answer questions and talk further about this. So look for a Zoom link for Tuesday evening at 6:30 if you'd like to be part of that. Also, pay attention. We're having a lantern walk on Christmas Eve from 4:30 to 5:30. You can bring a jar lantern if you have. We're hoping that everybody can make your lantern, but if you can't, we'll have some here for you. And we're going to have a lantern walk. And maybe it'll become a tradition after this year. I think it's going to be good. And we'll also be having our live stream Christmas Eve service at 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve. So please remember that. More importantly, for today, we have our ritual of compassionate connection, and that will also be at 12 noon today. And so if you've been going through a challenging time in your life, and many of us certainly are, if you're just feeling at your wits' end, you just need somebody to talk to, you just need to have an opportunity to express the sorrow and grief that you're feeling, please do join us for our compassionate connection at noon today. And we will have the simple ritual of listening and holding one another. I think that's all for the announcements. I'd like to thank everybody for today's service who was present to help make today's service possible. Thank you all volunteers in this room and staff as well. Thank you.
Our closing hymn today is Not in Vain the Distance Beckons. It's number 143 in the gray hymnal.
Not in vain the distance beckons, forward, forward, let us range. Let the great world spin forever down the ringing grooves of change.
let us imagine joining hands with our community members, guests, family, and friends, saying these words together. May faith in the Spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come. Be.